to join us on this Wednesday evening. And if you are saying, am I at the right location at the right time? Yes, you are, because we have an amazing speaker that we are going to be interviewing tonight. Not only a person that is well known in the community, but also a dear friend, and I do call him friend. I do want to say that before we get started, I want you to know that like us on Facebook, comment, share, go to YouTube, like us, comment, and subscribe. And again, like us, the New Day Fellowship Church, and comment and share, and then go to YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. So, we are going to get right into our interview this evening, and I again want to introduce to you. Some of you may have known him just from Baylor Scott and White over the years, but Dr. Avots, and I'm going to ask him to give us his bio and what he has done in his journey in healthcare before we continue this interview tonight.
Well, Teresa Beeman, thank you so much for having me here tonight. You and Robert have done an amazing job with this church and with serving our community, and it is an honor and a pleasure to be here tonight. You know, my healthcare journey really started when I was very young. My dad was a physician. He was a doctor out in a very, very small town in South Dakota. And I don't think he ever really got paid money. It was more bartering. He'd get a dozen eggs or a cord of wood or something like that. But what I noticed, even as a young child, Teresa, was how much respect he had for the patients and how much respect the patients had for him. Now, my mom was a nurse. She was his radiology technician. She was the receptionist. She was environmental services and cleaned up everything. All Dad had to do was see his patients. But I saw how Mom and Dad worked together. I saw what love they had for their patients. And I just assumed I had no choice but to be a doctor. And I've kept that in my mind all the time. I ended up going to school here at Temple, graduated in '72. Go Wildcats, guys. I love it, you know.
Go Wildcats.
Yes, go Wildcats, you know. It's been 50 years since I graduated from high school, and it is hard to believe, and I've loved every minute of it. Went off to the University of Texas in Austin, graduated from there, went to the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, ended up receiving a PhD in microbiology and then an MD degree from the school as well. Ended up with my training in Salt Lake City. Spent 5 years in Salt Lake City with my internship and residency in internal medicine and a 2-year fellowship in gastroenterology. Well, when I finished all of that, I was wondering, well, where am I going to work? What am I going to do? And I had an opportunity to come back to Temple. Never regretted it. I've been here almost 35 years now and have loved every moment of it. The community means everything to me. The community has provided my education, has welcomed me back, has given me a great job, and a wonderful place to raise kids. So I'm blessed.
You are blessed. And I know that Dr. Avots, you and I could probably talk medical terms because of our healthcare background, but I heard you say the word gastroenterology. Could you tell our viewers tonight what is gastroenterology?
Yes, gastroenterology is really the study of our digestive systems and how we digest food and how we treat diseases perhaps of the stomach, such as an ulcer, or how we try to prevent colon cancer in the colon. So anything to do with the mouth, the esophagus, swallowing mechanisms, the stomach, digestion, with the pancreas, with the liver, and with the colon, and how we take care of all of those things. That's what a gastroenterologist is interested in. Now, some people can't believe I'm interested in that kind of stuff, but guys, it has made a good living for me. I won't kid you, you know. I've enjoyed it very much.
And tonight we are going to focus a lot on really telling the audience this evening on how we also can care for ourselves. And I heard you say cancer screening. And I do know that when we sometimes go to the hospital and just for our healthcare checkups, we know that there are certain things that we need to get checked out yearly, but sometimes people do not understand about cancer screening. And I know that you have been very involved in this. So, could you please give us a little bit more history about cancer screening and what people need to look for?
Absolutely, Teresa. Cancer screening is so important, guys. It is so important. If we can prevent a cancer, or if we can find a cancer in a very early stage, we can make a tremendous difference in your life. Cancer screening, whether it's breast cancer, whether it's colon cancer, now even whether it's lung cancer, or even simple things like just getting your prostate checked for the men. Men don't like to talk about getting their colon screened. They don't like to talk about their prostates getting checked. But I'm going to tell you, a simple test, a visit with a doctor can make all the difference in the world about finding a cancer in an early stage versus a cancer in a later stage when it's much more difficult to treat and may adversely impact your life. The last thing that I ever wanted to see as a physician was a late stage cancer coming to the doctor for the first time. And I know that we could have made a difference had we started screening earlier. And as a gastroenterologist, I do like screening for the colon, and I don't care if you get a simple blood test that checks for blood in the stool, or if you get that colonoscopy where you have to clean out the colon, just get screened. And it's the same thing with women. Get those mammograms. Don't overlook those. Lung cancer. There's a lot you can do to even prevent that. Screening is difficult for lung cancer, but there are things that you can do to minimize your risk, and the number one risk is smoking. If you can quit smoking, you can make a world of difference in your life as far as lung cancer is concerned, heart disease is concerned, strokes are concerned, and everything. Smoking is problematic for healthcare, and we need to do better about educating everyone about the dangers of smoking.
Thank you so much. And I know that even as we're listening tonight, there may be someone that is saying, I have not had any of those tests, maybe never, or maybe in the last 10 or 20 years. And so I will definitely join you in saying, if you have not, please go out and get that screening done as quickly as possible. But I have to say that there are many ways that you can get screenings now, because some people may think, oh, I have to go to the doctor. I have to pay for a screening. But Dr. Avods, and I want you to give us a little bit more about the great works that you do partnering with Baylor Scott and White, because you are very involved in the community. And I do know that there are many screenings that our community can get without going to the hospital, that they can actually get through bus drives and donor drives. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely, and it's kind of like the flu shots as well. You know, I might as well put that in preventative services. We're trying to prevent you from getting a flu if you get your flu shot, or prevent COVID if you get those COVID shots and the booster. Same thing, you know, there are opportunities with mobile mammography that can go out there. There are tests that can be done that check for blood in the stool, which may indicate a problem. There is our community clinic, which has worked so drastically to reduce health disparities and promote screenings and chronic disease management, many different options. And right now, if you're an adult, You can get a free flu shot, I think, at any one of our pharmacies, HEB and so on. It is really amazing. So there are opportunities to get screened out there that aren't going to require a doctor visit, aren't going to require money on you paying up front to get a screening test done.
Thank you so very, very much, because I do believe that we need to speak free. Is out there 20, well, not 24/7, but definitely 7 days a week that you can probably find some of these
We do.
vaccines.
We need to be able to promote that. And again, if we can prevent something, it is a lot cheaper than ever treating it. And I think you guys know how expensive healthcare is, how insurance has gone up. It's unaffordable for many, many people. But guess what? If we didn't have to deal with late-stage cancers, if we didn't have to deal with flu by just getting screened or getting our flu shots, it would make a world of difference for all of us, for the community, for our healthcare system, for you and your families.
Thank you so much, Dr. A. Watts. As I'm sitting here, I'm thinking not only we are talking about a wonderful physician that has probably seen thousands of patients in his 40 plus years as a healthcare provider, but he's also a Christian physician. I tell you, I have never, ever came in contact with Dr. A. Watts without a Christian hug and just loving on me as if I was his sister in Christ, in which I believe that. So, Dr. A. Watts, tell us about your connection with your faith and how involved you are in your church. And I do know from listening to your wife that you are a preacher because you love to talk about God. So tell us about your faith.
Teresa, how much time do I have?
You have all night.
So I will share a story, and I've actually been thinking about this lately as well when Robert asked me to participate in this podcast. But I was thinking back on my life. My grandfather on my father's side was a music minister, and this was in Latvia, one of those little small Baltic states that's above Germany, across from Norway or by Sweden. But he was a music minister. And my grandfather on dad's side died when my father was 12, so I never met the man. But my father has been in this country, and his dad, the music minister, had instilled a love of organ music in my father. And my father has instilled that music in me as well. So I've grown up in a household always with music, and I loved it. Now, I will tell you, and Robert, you can close your ears on this, I didn't really enjoy going to church and listening to the preacher, whether it was fire and brimstone or some long sermon or anything. I just didn't understand. But I loved the hymns, guys. I loved the singing, loved the music and everything. But this was in a Lutheran church. I grew up in Marlin, Texas, and went to Grace Lutheran Church, which was literally a block from my house. So Sunday school was fun, went to church, enjoyed that. And I was confirmed in the Lutheran church. And I still remember my pastor back then, Philip O. Castens. He had a daughter that was my age, and we were in confirmation class together. And I was 13 years old when I was confirmed, almost 14. It was April, and I turned 14 in the next month in May. But Pastor Castens gave me a confirmation verse. John 14:27. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you, not as the world gives, but as I give. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. Now, as a 14-year-old kid, I didn't understand that verse. Teresa, I couldn't understand it. But I'll tell you what, guys, it's never left me. And I have been with that verse for the last 55 years, and I think I'm figuring it out. But I will share with you at least my thoughts on this. But it's because of this verse My whole life is centered around this, trying to understand that. And when I think about these great stories, so the verse says, the last half is, do not be afraid. And it makes sense. You know, fear is all around us, whether it was in Moses' time or whether it was today or in Jesus' time, fear has always been there. And it started literally in the Garden of Eden. When Adam and Eve took that bite of an apple, what happened? All of a sudden they're trying to hide, they were fearful, they were trying to get away. Now, God could have thrown up his hand and said, hey, it's over, done with, we'll just wipe things out. But he gave us a chance. But fear has been with us ever since. And one of my heroes is Moses. I mean, he was born a Hebrew in Egypt. And talk about racism, they were trying to eliminate the Hebrews. So his parents put him in a reed boat, and who picks him up but the Pharaoh's daughter himself? And he's raised in a royal court. But he saw how the Egyptians were treating the Hebrews, and it got the better of him one day, and he took the life of one of those Egyptian men, and he knew he had to escape and leave Egypt. So he left Egypt and went to parts of, I think it's Saudi Arabia now, if I'm not mistaken. But long story short, he was there for 40 years, living a good life, been married, was a shepherd and all of that, and guess what? The burning bush appears. And he was walking up and look at that, and all of a sudden he hears a voice. He goes, hold on, buddy, no closer, take your sandals off, sit down, and listen to me. And it was God speaking to him. And I just love this story because God said, I need you to go back to Egypt and free your people. And Moses said, not so fast. He says, I can't speak real good. I can't talk real good. So he's talking about all of this stuff, and God is a little upset with him and says, did I not give you a mouth to speak? I will put the words in your mouth. So he goes back to Egypt with his brother Aaron, and they free the people. And then you know the rest of the story. Seas part, he gets away. 40 years they're wandering, and he brings down the tablets. What a great story. But Moses was afraid. Jonah gets swallowed by the whale. He's swallowed by the whale because he was trying to get away from what God was asking him to do. He was afraid. And even Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, the night before he dies, he asks his Father the rhetorical question, do I really have to go through with this? He was afraid. So fear has always been with us. But there is a good kind of fear as well. And that's the fear of God. That's when we understand that he really is almighty. We have that respect for him. So there's a good fear, and then there's that earthly fear. And we experience that fear all the time in this country. And then when I think about that first part of the verse, and I know I'm going on, and this is why my wife says, don't preach, but I'm going to tell you guys, this is the part that was hard. My peace I give to you, not as the world gives, but as I give. And I couldn't figure that out. But if you think about it again, there really are two kinds of peace. The first peace is earthly peace, what we have here on earth. And how stable is that? It's transient, it's ephemeral. One day we're feeling good, one day we're not. We have racism, we have violence, we have school shootings, we have a war in Ukraine. The economy is upside down. Things to be fearful of all the time. And in the best of times, it's only transient. But I'll remind you again, you believe in Jesus, you believe in God, you live his word, you will have that peace which passes all understanding. And if you have that peace, it doesn't matter what happens in the world. You know that you will be fine. So that verse that's taken me so long to figure out has been a guiding light in my life. And everything else around it has been supported by that verse. And when I really think about it, I think one of my roles here is I may be a leader at Scott & White, But I like to think of myself as a servant leader, trying to put the needs of others in front. And who is the greatest servant leader of all time? You got it. Jesus. He's my hero. He's my mentor, as was Moses, as was Jonah, as were many of these people. And I think those are the things that make a difference in my life. And my life has been blessed because I believe in these things. And it's how I take care of my work and how I interact with my patients, with my family, with my friends at church, with my friends in the community, with Embrace Health.
And you said exactly the words that I was going to lead up to Embrace Health. And when you say free my people, and I think of Embrace Health because many times when we look at many diverse groups here in the community, many times they're fearful of physicians. They're fearful to go to the hospital. And because of that, we know that they may not go and get their blood pressure checked. They may not go and get their blood glucose checked because maybe they're either fearful of the provider or fearful of the news that they may hear, or if they do hear it, they may not understand it. But Dr. Avotz has been very critical instrument here in our community with an initiative called Embrace Health. So Dr. Avotz, I would like for you to give us a little history about Embrace Health and where it has been and where you foresee it going.
Teresa, Embrace Health has been a marvelous collaboration with Baylor Scott and White, with the University of Mary Hardin Baylor, with the Texas A&M Medical School, and with the New Day Fellowship Church. Now, the basics of the program started many years ago with Dr. McNeil, Catherine McNeil, that's right, but we have incorporated and brought it here to Temple. And really the idea was twofold. We wanted our students, the medical students, our nursing students, our physical therapy students, working in teams, because I think that's where the future of medicine is. Working in teams and trying to respect each other's opinions, thoughts, and respecting the expertise that each brings to the table. We have paired them with families here at the New Day Fellowship Church. And these families get to meet these teams of medical providers, and they sit down and have a meal, and they talk across the table about the experiences of getting health care, which isn't always easy. And how do they do when something goes wrong? And it's really been a two-way street. The students are learning so much from these families. And I'll get on another tangent in a minute about this, but we're also learning from these families. We're also learning what their needs are and how they address these things when they don't have the resources that we expect them to have. And if we can share that information with community partners, with others, I think we can really ultimately have a tremendous impact on the overall well-being of our community. If we're all as healthy as we can possibly be, we can all work, we can all take care of our families, and we can have the life that we're dreaming about. But if we're struggling to meet our health care needs, if we can't meet them, if we're having to decide, do I buy food for my family or do I buy the insulin I need for my diabetes? That's not a real choice, guys. It's a tough choice. And someone makes that choice, but it's not always the right choice or the easy choice, and we don't always have answers. So I need the students to understand how difficult it may be to maintain your health, and that we've got to do it. Now, I'll get back to the other story. Teresa says I've been practicing 40 years, and that is true, but I will guarantee you, at least for the first half, I never understood what the social determinants of health are. And when I'm talking about the social determinants of health, what I'm saying is, do you have a roof over your head? Do you have access to food? Do you have utilities in the house? Do you have transportation to be able to take you where you need to go? Now, as a young doctor, I figured I could cure anything. But I can't cure the social determinants of health. And I never realized the impact these have on the overall well-being of the patients that I was seeing. I thought, I'll just give them medicines. I'll tell them to come back and see me in 3 weeks. They can put their medicines in the refrigerator and keep them cold. Well, if you don't have a car, if you don't have a roof over your head, you don't have electricity in the house, you can't accomplish anything. And that patient comes back in 4 weeks and they're worse off, and I'm wondering what the heck is going on. And I blame the patient because they're not compliant. It's not that I've never met a patient who didn't want to be healthy. It's just they didn't have the ability to maintain their health. So that's where Embrace Health, that's where you and Robert and the church have been so important to my understanding of these issues and how we start to try to address these together as a team. Baylor Scott & White's a great healthcare system. I will put up our doctors, nurses, our staff against any staff in the world. And I think we will stack up really, really well. And we can do a lot of great things. But Baylor Scott & White Health is not going to fix homelessness. They're not going to fix food insecurities. We're not going to have the transportation issues fixed as a healthcare system. But I think we have to work with our community partners. We have to work with the New Day Fellowship Church. We have to work together. How are we going to address these things? How do we move the marble? How do we promote and provide the things that are so necessary for maintaining health? So again, these are thoughts that have changed my mind on how we address health and healthcare in this country.
Thank you so much, Dr. Avots, and I feel your passion for this community and everything that you do. And I was thinking about other resources and connections, and I do know that you are very involved here in Temple, Texas. Could you tell us about some of the other resources that our viewers out there may not know about that you have connections with?
You know, I do think that there are so many different organizations out there that are trying to do great things, and we don't always know about them. And I was just earlier today meeting with people at the Bell County Public Health District. Our health district has some great resources that you can reach out to them and help with a variety of things, from various infections and vaccinations for children and health in general. We have our Central County Services, which used to be called MHMR. You know, there are some great resources there that are accessible as well. We have some marvelous food pantries that are collecting food. We have our schools, Temple College, even University of Mary Hardin Baylor. We have some resources there. We just haven't put it all together in one nice little package to be able to get out to community members. And that is something that Dr. Beeman and I are working on. How do we put this together so we can share? And the last thing we need is about 4 or 5 different organizations doing the same thing. Let's join up and be certain that we're not duplicating or triplicating these services. Let's see what we each do best and then share it with the rest of the group. So I think there are many resources, from MHMR to the Bell County Public Health District to our different programs at the schools. Temple College has a marvelous dental hygiene program. They're always looking for patients to have their teeth cleaned. You know, UMHB has a program where if you're anxious or stressed or depressed, can maybe get some services as well. It doesn't have to be Baylor Scott & White. We're all having to work together to be able to provide the best possible service.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I do know as we move forward with Embrace Health, we have many ideas that we want to bring to the table. And I do know connecting with other resources here in Temple, like Feed My Sheep, who was very instrumental in helping us, even with our backpack event this past summer, by bringing physicians to do free physicals for children. And so that is what I love about Embrace Health, that we are connecting with other community resources to bring them here so that we're able to reach even more people in our community.
So, Teresa, what's that old saying? It takes a village to raise a child? That's what we need. We need all of us working together, shaking hands, taking care of each other and taking care of our kids. Because I'll tell you, if we're going to change the world, it's got to start with our kids. Now, I'm not saying it's too late for me, but I think if we can educate our kids, take care of our kids, we're going to be in good shape. And that's what the community needs to be doing. We need to focus on our young ones so they don't make the mistakes we've made, so they understand these things and move forward.
And you know, Dr. Avods, as you were saying, children, I was thinking here at a New Day Fellowship Church, we also have a learning academy where there are children. And Dr. Avods, you're going to have to come and talk to those children. I think that if you would come and put your white coat on and them say, oh, there is a doctor, they would probably be very excited.
Well, listen, I'll dig out that white coat, Teresa. I'll find that white coat, and I'll come visit with those kids and all of that. But I do think, there's so many things that we need to be doing as well, And I'll tell you, one of the other things that I've been involved with is we've got some of our pediatricians and some of our medical students going into our public school district, working with third and fourth graders, and they wear their white coats. They come in and they talk to the kids about science and math and technology, and they're giving them lessons that maybe will be helpful in life and maybe steer them towards a career in healthcare. And that's what we're shooting for, and we're starting with the third and fourth graders, and it's just been so fun to see that. Those kids, they come to school every day and they say hello to their teacher and all that, but when the medical students show up, you ought to see their eyes light up. It's somebody new and somebody that's really excited and interested. So, Teresa, count on me coming to the visit to kids.
Yes, and I see one of our Learning Academy teachers in the audience, and there is a health day. I'm not for sure the time of the year it is, but we would love for us to partner together as a physician, as a nurse. I see even our case manager, nurse in the audience, that maybe we can come and talk to the children, because not only do we want them to know that it's okay to talk to us and not be afraid, but also maybe they want to be a nurse. Maybe they want to be a physician or case manager or social workers. So these are also jobs that we can even encourage them to dream for even as they get older.
Teresa, how many kids do you have in the program?
I think it's over 120 children.
So I've got a chance now to talk to 120 kids and have them become nurses and doctors, right? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that, We need every one of them. We need every one of them, So, I want to talk, maybe if I can, I'm going to go out on some, do we have time to keep talking?
And I'm looking at our pastor, and he is telling us 5 more minutes. Keep going.
I was just thinking, I've had a chance to talk to some of our high school kids recently, I'm excited about meeting these kids and all of that. But they asked me to talk to them and some advice. And I think one of the things that we all of us can do is we can be mentors for our kids. We really need to be mentors. And I will tell you, some of my greatest mentors were my teachers. I still remember my grade school teachers, Miss Hackle, Miss Forbes, Miss Burton, Miss Kilpatrick, Miss Grusendorf, Miss Holland. If I had a Mount Rushmore to build, those would be the 6 faces that I would put on that. My first 6th grade teachers, they believed in me. They were my mentors. So I'm always looking for mentors, and I'm finding people that are much younger than me that are still my mentors, but I'm also looking for opportunities to be a mentor. And I think when you're a mentor, like you said, dream big. You don't have to tell anybody what your dreams are, but dream big. And I think that's important. And work towards that goal. Cut it up into small steps. You know, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to go to medical school. I'm going to do a residency program. That's small bites. But at the end, that is just great. And you know what? Dreams change at times. Situations change. So you don't always have to accomplish your dreams, but you always should have a dream. And you might as well dream big. And I think the other thing I learned too is you got to take risks sometimes. There are risks that you need to take. And I heard a risk that happened here 15, 20 years ago about Robert and Teresa starting this place, wondering, do we really need to be doing this? It was a risk. And look where we are now. Look what we are now. If they hadn't taken that risk, we wouldn't have this place here today. And it is just amazing. It's been so easy to just say, it's just too hard. Let's not do this. But what would we have missed? The other thing that I tell kids is be grateful. Be grateful for what you have. Don't pine away or regret what you don't have or what someone else has have. It doesn't do any good. Be grateful for what you have. And the last thing I'm going to say that's important, I think, and I found this to be very important, is time. And what do I mean by time? Time is not a renewable resource. Once it's gone, it's gone. Don't waste time. Don't waste time. So, find mentors, dream big, take a few risks. Now, I'm not saying, take your money and go to Las Vegas. Not that kind of risk, guys. No. Be grateful for what you have and don't waste your time. Those are great things. Have helped me in my life.
Well, that is a great quote that we're going to put on paper and put your name under for 2022, because those are great words of wisdom. Dr. Avots, there was a scripture that came to me as we were beginning this podcast this evening, and it is Philippians 1:6. And it says, being confident of this very thing, that he which hath begun a good work in you will perform until the day of Jesus Christ. And I do believe that God gave me this scripture because of you. He has put a good work in you, and you have been confident, you have been faithful in doing his work. 40 years of serving patients, 40 years of giving your life to those in need. And then the last 15 years that I know of, you have spread it to the community to make sure that you're even touching in more lives. And so this evening, being confident and knowing that God has put a good work in you, could you just end us with prayer to give those out there encouragement, knowing that if you're dreaming, if you're believing, whatever it may be, if God has put it on the inside of you, and if you are confident and if you're faithful, God will see you through. So thank you, Dr. Avots, and would you please give us the honor of praying his good work over us?
If you'll bow your heads with me. Heavenly Father, we know that you are with us tonight, and we thank you for this time to be able to discuss and talk about things that are so critically important to the well-being not only of our community, but our state, our nation, and the world itself. We thank you for all those blessings you have bestowed upon us, and we are grateful for those. We want to thank you for those many things and many gifts that you provide us on a day in and day out basis. I do ask that you give us all gifts that we may share with each other. It is so important for us to take care of ourselves our families, our communities, our state, and our nation. Without this support, we will not be able to accomplish the good works you have intended for all of us. All these things we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for joining us tonight.